Hey, what's up? Just wanted to update you all on the progress for my inventory system. So I have this empty slot here, and this is where our inventory items are going to go. And whenever you run into something, these items, it adds on to your inventory. And I also now have functionality. So if you press each of the hotkeys, it will activate whatever ability is associated with that item. So the mushrooms, if I press 1, they make you grow. And so you can jump a little higher. And there's a cool off for that. So after a certain amount of time, you lose that ability and you're back to normal. And number 2, it makes you jump higher. And you'll also notice that the stack number decreased when I used it. And then if I hit 3, that'll be the soda, which makes you run faster. And there we go. And after you use up all your items, it disappears from your inventory. And you can't do more than one ability at a time. So now that the slot was open, now I can use a jump again. I'm pressing 1, but I can't use the soda quite yet until my jump is worn off. And I think it's worn off now. If I press 1, now he's got his super speed on. And if I keep clicking the keys, the hotkeys, nothing else happens because the inventory is now empty. So that is my inventory system and my item and ability system set up. I'm going to go ahead and look at some of the code and the assets of it right now. Alright, so I've got all the new ability stuff in a new folder and in a new scene. Basically, I have 3 scripts and 1 associated with each sort of ability. I only have 3 abilities in this game, and then only have 3 items. So it keeps it kind of simple. And the 3 scripts are on my player game object. So I have them right here, and I have them all deactivated by default. Let's look at the size shift. This was the most complex one. The other ones are based on this, and they're all pretty simple. So I have this this class ability size shift, and I'll start here actually. This is the coroutine that makes it grow, and then I have a coroutine for shrinking, which is basically the inverse. And so I have an elapsed time, a percentage complete, because I'm going to lerp all these values, and while the percentage complete is less than 1, so until it's done, finished lerping, this loop will continue. So set the elapsed time, percent complete, and then what I want to do is scale the skeleton, which is here. At first I was trying to just scale everything from the parent object here, this parent transform, but I had a lot of problems with that. So I end up having to scale each individual component or each individual part separately. So I have a lerp, a vector 3 lerp for the skeleton scale, and I have a start scale, end scale, and then I'm using a curve evaluate to have it lerp on a curve. After I start scaling the skeleton, I also want to scale the character controller. So the height, radius, and center of the character controller, the height, radius, and center. And then the third person controller, which is the script right here. This comes with the third person stutter assets. So then I have to scale the ground radius, the move speed, jump height, gravity, and sprint speed, because it would get bigger, but then it would be walking kind of slowly. So it seems like you'd have to scale up all this other stuff too, and then you also need to scale up the player camera root, which is where the virtual camera is pointed at, and that is this right here. Player camera root. It's a little above I think the center. Okay. And after that, you need to scale the virtual camera and just the shoulder offset, so it goes back a little further. So let's look at the player follow camera and this shoulder offset right here, so that it otherwise, as you scale up the character, the camera gets way in too close, so you need to pull that back a little bit when it scales. And the way I scale it is I scale it kind of the way I pull back the camera. I don't pull it back all the way. I don't match how it was before. I think by scaling or pulling it back a little bit less, it also helps give a sense of the size change. So we lerp the, let's just go full. So we lerp the shoulder offset, and it's a little hard to find out how to get that component. Actually, you have to do the virtual camera Cinemachine get component and the Cinemachine third person follow. So this right here, third person follow, that's where you have to reference. And to make it shrink, so I have it grow, and then I think whatever duration you set, this ability duration, I have it shrink after that. So it's pretty much all the same, except I just flip the start and end values. And looking at, let's say, for example, the ground radius, I just use the literal right here, and then I multiply that times the scale factor. And I do that for a lot of these, multiply times scale factor. And then when I reverse it, the way this is set up, it's set up for you to grow one time. You can't do multiple grows. The reason I'm doing that is because some of the values get a little bit finicky when you start scaling them up. So I'd have to set those individually for each set of scalings. So it's just set up for one scaling. And these are the references. It's quite a bit for me anyways. So the ability duration, so it's how long the player has the ability before it reverts to normal. This is the scale factor, how much I'm scaling up the height and the width and the speed and things like that. Reference to the virtual camera, reference to third person controller, character controller, skeleton, camera root. And these are floats, so I can capture the initial settings. So I have the start settings when I do the lerps. This is a vector 3 for the shoulder cam offset, or cam shoulder offset. This is a toggle or a bool for size shifting. I'll show you where that's at later. And start scale is vector 3, duration. This is how long it takes to do the scaling. And the elapsed time, I think I use it in the coroutine. And an animation curve is so I can set the curve. Right here. So I can get a little bit of a ease in and ease out. And then here in the start function, I set third person controller, skeleton, camera root. I get the components and I find the objects. And then I set these initial values here that I'm going to use later in the methods. Okay. Now this public method here is actually called by the inventory so that the inventory can access this functionality. If it's not size shifting, if it isn't either getting large or getting smaller during that whole phase, you can only activate it, or you can't activate it. So that way you can't have multiple grows at the same time. You can't activate the size shift more than one time. So if it's not size shifting, I switch size shifting to true. And then I start the coroutine to grow. And then I start the coroutine to shrink. So these are both started at the same time, but the size grow keeps on going, whereas I have a yield return on the shrink for the ability duration. So this starts maybe like 10 seconds after this starts. And otherwise, this is a coroutine. So while the percentage is less than 100%, it's going to do all this, and then it's going to return, or yield return null. So it's going to stop here, and then keep going. And for the size shrink, it's more or less the same thing, except at the end, I set the size shifting to false, so you can shift again after this is done. And I have a similar static bool that the inventory reads that does basically the same thing. So you can't activate the ability more than one time. So that is the size shift. And the ability, the speed up is more or less the same, except only affecting the speed. So a lot of these variables are the same. We have another bool here to control the functionality. These are all the same. Only other different thing here is I have a reference to the animator because I want the animation to run faster. And so I set up all the references here in the start. I have this public method so the inventory can activate this. And then here I have the speed up method, and it's pretty similar to the other one. This is a coroutine, and the only difference here is I have this lerp for the animator speed, and I just lerp from 1 to 2, so I double the animation speed. And then I have a mood speed here, and the sprint speed. And the speed down is same as the other one. So I wait for the ability duration, and basically lerp down to the original size. So the move speed time scale factors will start, and the move speed, the original move speed is the end. And I have these here to control the functionality. So these are both set to false, and so you can activate the ability again. And now we have the jump high. And this is very similar. All these references, same sort of active jump, or same sort of method, public method that is accessible to the inventory. And then I have the coroutine for the jumping. And I just lerp the jump height. Third person controller dot jump height. And the unjumping is more or less the same as before. All right, so this is the inventory script. It was mostly set up before, but I didn't have the functionality set up. But now this has all the functionality. So let's see what the new parts are. So I have the references here for all the scripts. And I have that right above I should probably move that, but for now it's fine. Above the script, or above this method that enables all these scripts. So I have a reference to all the scripts that are on the player. These all right here, and they're all set to, they're all disabled by default. And what this enable script is, it's basically it enables each script depending on if an item has been picked up. So for example, if you pick up a soda, then I'm going to enable the speed up script. If you pick up a mushroom, I'll enable the size shift script. If you pick up a pill, enables the jump high script. All right, I have, you see, this is all stuff I've already gone over, although this here is new. So that script I was referring to, or that method I was just referring to, I use it twice here. And so I enable these scripts whenever we add something to the inventory. And yeah, so whenever we add something to inventory, I need to enable the script. If it's already in the inventory and we're just adding to the stack number, I don't need to enable the scripts because the scripts are already enabled. It was enabled when it's first added to the list. So I call that method here if it's the first item or if it's a new item added to the inventory. This is all the same, and I just went over that. And then I also have another script here to disable the scripts. So this is for when the item is completely taken out of the inventory. So the stack number has gone from 2 to 1 to nothing, and the item's been taken out of the inventory. And I call that here in this remove item method. And so I call that here in this remove item method, but this remove item method is called somewhere else. So let me go to that first. So we have this disable ability scripts. And what this does is when the items are removed from the inventory, it just disables the scripts. So pretty much the inverse of this right here. So if the item, we call this with the item, if it has the name soda, we disable that script. And when I do this, it's all in the this private void update, this update method right here. I have a couple different if statements capturing if a digit key was pressed, 1, 2, or 3. And okay, and what that does first is it sets this ability is active bool to true. And these keys only work if an ability is not active. So this way you can only have one ability active at a time. You can't have the same ability activated twice. So if the first digit is pressed and the inventory list.count is greater than 0, so if there's at least one item in the inventory, you can press 1. So if there's 1, 2, or 3 items, you can press 1. And in this one right here, if you press the 2 button, this only works if the count is greater than 1. So if you have 1 or 2 items. So what this does is it prevents you from pressing number 3 if you only have 2 items in your inventory. So, and this is also if the ability is active is false. So it sets the ability active to true, and it checks which ability to activate, and then it removes that item. And I use this index here based on whatever key. So if you press 2, it's going to be index 1. If you press 3, it's going to be index 2. So check which ability to activate, index 0. So it sends this over here. And what it does is you have that index. It looks at the inventory list at the index of I, and it grabs that item. And then it checks the item name of that item. And depending on the item name, it's going to set up the appropriate script. Oh, actually, no, it doesn't set up the script. It takes the index, it grabs the item from the inventory list based on that index, sets it up here in item to check. And then if the item to check is a soda, then it activates this method. So the speed script .activate speed up, it actually activates the speed up. You actually start the speed up, And the same thing if the item is a mushroom, it activates the size shift, and if it's a pill, it activates the jump high. So what you're doing here is when you press a key, press 1, 2, or 3, it gives you an index, and then that index is used to grab the item in whatever the corresponding item slot, and then it checks the name of that item, and then according to the name, it activates the appropriate method. Okay, and then after that, you do a remove item by the same index. So you take that index and you basically do this again where you grab the item by the index, and then you check if it's the last of the stack. So if it's the last of the stack, if you only have like one mushroom, now you have none. So then you remove that item from the list and you disable that script. So you can't use that ability anymore. But if the stack size is greater than 1, all you do is reduce the stack size. You leave the script enabled and you leave the ability enabled, but you just reduce the stack size. And then I also I call this a delegate event here. So this is the inventory script, and it didn't do anything on the inventory bar. The inventory bar script is more or less the same. I did change this part here to deactivate use slots, and then I set up this other variable. So max is the total slots available. So in the inventory bar, I have 3 slots. So the max is 3. And this is so when you update the inventory bar, the first thing I want to do is deactivate the unused slots. What was happening was I was using items, but the slots would stay open even though they were taken out of the inventory. So I do a loop through, and anything above the count, the present count, gets deactivated. So if I only have 2 items, then the third will get deactivated. And then right here, I activate the other slots. I went over this in the inventory video, but I basically activate the slot, and then I set the image icon, and I set the stack size. All right, so that's my inventory system and ability system. Let's look at it one more time. Can grab an item and it updates, and then it stacks. Grab another item, and if I use something, it will disappear from the inventory and activate my ability. And I can't activate anything else until it's done. And I use that, and the stack size went from 2 to 1, and my ability is activated. And I can still pick up things while my ability is activated, but I just can't activate another ability. And there we go. So I hope that's useful to somebody. It's a little bit complicated. It was for me anyways, but I tried to simplify it as much as possible. So as an overview, I have the player, I have the 3 ability scripts which handle the functionality, and these are called by the inventory scripts. And these are called by the inventory script which handles the inventory list. They're all unactivated to start with, and whenever you pick something up, it's going to activate the script, so the ability is available. All right.